Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
You are watching a Fact TV presentation of the WNESU School Board meeting.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting of the Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union Board of Directors to order at 6:15 with apologies to the public. This is a new time for our meeting to occur. They historically have been at 6:30, and we have started a new process whereby they'll be at 6 o'clock, and all of the messages didn't get through. So again, apologies for starting a little bit late tonight, but we're ready to get underway. I'll start, I think, with introductions around the table. Let me say, for those who don't know, I'm Cheryl Charles, and I was elected the chair of this supervisory union board at our recent reorganization meeting. Not a role I was looking for, and I'm quick to say that I'm happy to serve in that role. I'd like to have introductions, and when we go around the table, I'd like those of you who also have supervisory union roles to acknowledge those in their introductions as well. But let me start with you, Team.
Team BLC representing Westminster on the SU board.
Priscilla Lambert representing Rockingham on the WNESU board and clerk of this board.
Jim McAuliffe representing the Rockingham board, and I believe I'm the assistant treasurer.
I think you are. An elected position. Thank you, Jim.
Kathy Ciano Goodwin, Brockton, and also on the SU board.
Chris Kibbe, Rockingham board and treasurer of the WNESU. I just want to say you were elected in a landslide. It was,
Yes, there's no question.
Yeah.
Jason Terry representing Rockingham School Board.
June Streeter, and I'm a representative of Bells Falls Union High School, and I am one of the warrant signers for the SU.
Molly Bannock, I am the chair of the high school board representing Westminster and the assistant chair of the SU board.
For which I'm immensely grateful.
And Lynn Morgan has signed on.
Okay, very good. Let's have additional board members who are joining by Zoom. Lynn, please do introduce yourself. Good.
Elementary School.
Great, nice to see you, Lynn. Thanks. And David Clark, not a voting member of this board, but please introduce yourself.
Actually, I was going to wait 15 minutes to introduce myself, Cheryl. That's how long I've been sitting in the waiting room, not knowing what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Did you hear my apologies at the beginning of the meeting that we had a little communications issue, and the meetings now start at 6 o'clock, and I'm sorry you had to wait, David. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. I'll address it a little bit more fully in communication comment.
All right, thank you. And we have another board member in the room. I would invite you to introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Mike Stack, and I'm on the high school board and basically a pledge.
Thank you for joining us, Mike. Any other board members? No. Okay. Well, let's also introduce the others who are here with a speaking role tonight. And so I see Jim Vizina, if you'd like to make an introduction. Whoops, you're on mute, Jim.
Jim Vizina, Director of Finance.
Thank you for being here. And Andy?
Andy Haas, Superintendent of Schools.
All right, with that, I think we're officially convened. Thanks as always to Fact TV for being here to help record this for the public. Let me call for any adjustments to the agenda, if there are.
Cheryl, if I may, under 6C, Steve Horton will not be here. 6C is just more informational for the board. So he's not doing a presentation or bringing bids. I can explain that later. Just.
All right. And if I may, I'll call for any communications and public comments at this time. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm going to take note of the fact that based on past experience, it's likely that this board, the members who showed up promptly at 6 o'clock or before 6 o'clock were engaged in discussion, even if it was a non-official nature. I think it is poor judgment to leave your Zoom audience sitting in the dark, wondering what on earth is going on. And I think in the future that when the appointed hour arrives, that you should at least open the Zoom, even if you can't open your meeting, because certainly what are referred to as ex parte communications are taking place during that period of time between your official meeting start and the time when your meeting does actually start officially. So I'm suggesting very strongly that you no longer freeze the non-present members of the public out of your meetings, even if you can't officially open that meeting. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, David.
May I just
You may.
comment? So David and to anyone else that is on Zoom, it is my apology. I was delayed getting here and I controlled the Zoom. It's part of the problem with the hybrid system, but of setting it up. So it was because I wasn't here at the start is the reason why the Zoom wasn't set up. So I do deeply apologize.
I presume you were going to show up by 6:30. That's supposed to be levity. It's not actually criticism of the superintendent of schools. When you're sitting in the dark Zoom, you have no way of knowing. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate the fact that you did get things going here. And I also appreciate the fact that the chair has opened the meeting with, I think, a good deal of grace and humility. Thank you.
With that, our next item of business is to review and approve board minutes for March 22nd. Okay, Mr. McAuliffe has moved approval of the minutes of March 22nd. We need not a second as we're operating by the rules of small boards. Any discussion?
One, if I may.
Mhm.
The teacher and support staff negotiation, does Grafton and Athens and Westminster not have a representative on that board?
I'm not sure.
The Grafton board chose not to appoint someone at their meeting, because you can appoint someone afterwards.
Oh, okay.
And off the top of my head, and I apologize, I don't, Westminster, I think Cheryl is the,
Oh, okay.
by ex default, so
Right.
whatever.
And we still are talking about a position for the supervisory union board, and we left that
Oh,
open.
okay.
Yeah, so
All right.
I'm not
So
representing.
there
the
should
issue.
be a Grafton Athens and an SU rep
Correct,
when it actually happens.
correct.
Okay.
With that, any other discussion on the minutes?
Just
Yes,
have a
Kathy.
type area on my name. It's C, Kathy with a C, not a K.
All right, just a request to correct a typo in Kathy Siano's name. It's a C, not a K. Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Cheryl, you have to do roll call for
Oh.
Lynn.
I'm so sorry. Thank you very much. Lynn, how do you vote, please?
Aye.
Thank you. So I think we can call that unanimous in the room, plus the vote from Lynn. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So we have new business for discussion and action. And on the agenda, unless we had changed it in adjustments, which we didn't, the first item would be approval of policy E1, Title I, Part A, family engagement. Does anybody want to speak to that?
So this, the policy is required for boards to have this policy. It simply is governance of how Title I, how we respond during to Title I, which are federal funds that flow through the Agency of Education to us. And it just kind of outlines the things we must have in place and that we must partner with parents and have family engagement. So, I don't know, Priscilla,
Yeah, it was discussed at a policy meeting, and it was posted February 9, 2023. So it is one that, like Andy said, is required, and we did a lot of work on that because we worked on it several meetings to get it into the shape that it's in now. So
Pretty
everybody
word.
should have had a chance to look at that and be prepared, because that's been posted for quite a while.
Well, let me entertain a motion to
I
approve it.
will do a motion to approve policy E1, Title I, Part A, family engagement.
All right, thank you. And,
With putting the title at the top, because right now it's not at the top.
okay, asking for the title on the top. I'd like to call for additional discussion now that there's a motion on the floor. And could you speak a little more to what you and the policy committee talked about with respect to this required policy? What were the issues?
A lot of it was the fact that you can put lists in there of all of the things that go on, and we addressed some of that through write-ups and verbiage so that it was covered, because in order for the special ed system to work, we needed that in there. I don't have a copy of it in front of me. If I'm being honest, do you have a copy?
Yeah.
So even though it's a required policy, you all made changes to it? That's what I'm looking for. A little
No,
more understanding.
basically what happens is, for example, when you go down through, it asks for like putting in barriers and that, and you can put in additional lists and all of that. So we went through it and decided what we really needed to have in there, and listed anything under the things that we felt were necessary. We applied them to our district, which the policy recommended by the state gives a whole lot of different possibilities and a lot of different things that you can put in there, and it asks you to address what things your association, your schools actually put in there, and things that you actually work on in yours, to be sure that you are meeting all of the requirements for the federal things, so that, because it's federal money. So you have to have everything in there to do that. So we tweaked it and made sure that it met our requirements and exactly what we were doing, and added anything that our district did. For example, under, what is it? It talked about the school parent compact. It's one section. It talks about the involvement of the buildings. It talks about how we monitor children's progress, and all of the things that our school does. It includes the procedure involvement, which is one thing that makes it a longer document than some of our other documents, and what's in there. We're trying to be sure that we address all the needs of our students, and that we involve the families as much as possible in any of the things that we do for those students.
Okay, Kathy, yes.
I didn't see anything in there about timelines, once a child's referred to Title I services, and the accountability, not just the child's improvements, but accountability to the service for people giving the service to the child.
That's through the supervisory union. They set up the timelines and those kinds of things, and that's why those are definitely procedural.
So that's one of the things I was just gonna ask to add on to it. I think, June, as you said, it's very lengthy. Yes, it's a document that covers the federal, stuff, so it's gonna be wordy. And that was some of the discussion also, is like, can we pare this down? How do you make it more parent friendly? And the procedure is how we make it more parent friendly. So we will develop off of this. We have one, but it needs to be updated. But it includes, how does a student get referred for title services, and what are the steps that we take, through that process. So, and how we inform parents. So,
but I think it's really critical to have your timelines there, because once a child's referred, it takes weeks, maybe months before a child is seen, because the backlog of child needing a service. So that's important to really document. And also the accountability of the people given the service. Are they doing what they're supposed to do in the time frame of that child's contract? Either it's an ESA or plan. I'm concerned about that's being done.
So title does not have strict timelines as IEPs or special education has. But that's part of the procedures that we put in place is, so once a teacher has identified a student, what are those steps? You know, we have regular data team meetings and whatnot, so we're developing all of those to be in place. So we put a lot of structure in place this year that didn't exist. And so now we're at the point of writing up those structures so that parents are aware of them.
Yeah, Kathy, I think those concerns are well placed, and this is policy. So this is not a procedures manual.
Yeah.
So our role is to take action on a policy that is required. Are there any comments or questions from anybody else, including those on Zoom? Andy, I will say that there are a lot of requirements in here, things for us to do. So I think in part to build on Kathy's point, can we see if you could bring to the board a structured schedule for how we're going to meet the obligations that are specified in the policy?
Yeah, and one thing that it does do in answer to Kathy's question is that it sets up that we will distribute at the start of each school year the procedures and so the timeline that is there. So that's kind of incorporated into there, but it does give the central office and the superintendent the ability to adjust those a little bit to meet with parents, and parents have input into that as well.
Because oftentimes you have if it's the school board or to the principal or to the teacher, how come my child's not receiving these services like Title I? Why are we waiting so long for that service?
Are you saying ones that have been approved for Title I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be really curious because I've not heard of students who I think have been referred for title that have not been delayed or have been delayed. So.
All right, let me go to Chris next and then Team.
I don't know if you're conflating special ed and Title I here. Because no. Title I are services for underprivileged children. And all of our schools are all school-wide programs, which is why the money is all bundled in one block, the way you deal with it. It's not a targeted program, but, and all the kids in the whole district qualify for services because we're school-wide. So I know you have some ways that you're prioritizing some kids, I've heard, but the fact is everyone should be receiving services from Title I. And they're not on individual plans, that's special education.
Well, they might be on an EST plan.
Yeah, so we have regular data meetings within our buildings, just so everyone kind of, you know, between Deb Cardane and Shelley Wilson, they meet with grade level teams and with the principal. So they have data meetings where they're looking with the teachers at the data to see what students are potentially needing intervention, what interventions have teachers already put into place, looking at how we can, you know, implement some interventions if we need to move them to an EST plan or an educational support team plan, and then use that document to help drive more data collection and more intervention. And then if the student continues to struggle, is then to look at should there be a referral to special education, possibly for direct services. So that's our typical process, but we can definitely get that written out. It is written out, but I mean, the newer process we can get to you guys. So.
Team.
I mean, I was going to, similar to what Andy said, I think the district has that policy in place. They've implemented data meetings this year, and they have more, from what I see, they have a lot more refined systems of data collection now, so they can really pinpoint where the areas of struggle are with students. And I think in terms of just like procedures, we might have to be a little patient on that because Act 173 is largely said to be a special ed change, but really the biggest change are coming in to like core and intervention situations. So those are going to need to take into account before, procedures are gonna have to look different than they've looked in the past because of those law changes.
Okay, thank you. So we have a policy, a motion to approve this policy on the table. Any further discussion? All right, if I may, I'll call for a vote, and let me go to Zoom and ask Lynn. How do you vote? Thank you very much. And around the table, Molly?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
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 Okay, all right, and I do as well. So unanimously passed. Thank you very much. That's done, and we'll look forward to the additional detail about how we actually meet all of these expectations. The next topic is to ratify the teacher roster for school year 23-24, and these would be supervisory union employees. These are not rosters for individual school districts. Andy, I wonder if you would present this for us?
Sure. So I handed out here, Lynn, I emailed it, so you might not have it. We color coded some of it, so I apologize for that. So the roster in front of you are teachers that are employed by WNESU. So that includes our special education or student services faculty, and then also anyone who is a grant-funded position. Typically in the past, grant-funded positions might not have been on this roster in past years.
It's not mine.
They were not.
They were not. However, you know, it actually, because Jim's here, it started with Jim and when Jim came on board last year, he said, hey, Andy, I think you got to take some language off of our contracts, which kind of pointed out that they were grant-funded positions. And so then I had a meeting with our attorney who advised that, yes, we had to take that language out and that we need to have the board approve teachers that are grant funded as if they are regular teachers because they have bumping rights. And so if for some reason a grant were to fall through, those teachers have to be issued a contract now and they have the right to then bump another teacher somewhere down the road. We don't anticipate that at all. We've been given our preliminary numbers for our title grant, and we feel very comfortable with where we are. But we kind of got in a quagmire where we wouldn't in past practice, give out those contracts later. And so we've been told we have to give contracts at the same time as everybody else. So that's where we are.
I'd like to entertain a motion, and then we'll go through discussion. So is there a motion to approve the roster as presented to us?
I will make a motion to approve the roster as presented.
Okay, Molly Vanek has made that motion. Let me open for discussion. Molly?
Andy, what happens to all of these that are marked ESSER? My understanding is in 2024, that money goes away. They're on here, so they may just bump another teacher if we lose that money.
So at the end of the next school year, essentially, if those positions are not positions that we can find a way to move into local or into additional grant fundage, then those positions would go away. And then any teacher who is an SU employee, there's a clause in the CBA that outlines they have seniority. So if they've moved, then we would have to look at bumping rights. Yes.
So, sorry.
That's not only fiscal 25.
Yeah, that's only us too.
This is for 24.
I understand.
Yeah, okay.
So in those, what is most of these ESSER, a lot of these ESSERs say interventionist, K through 6. Was that something that we made up for ESSER?
Correct.
Okay.
It's part of our social emotional directive to try and address students as they came back into school dysregulated. Many of them are, you see something like it says Zen Den, right? So that's the where we're trying to reconnect with kids so that if they're dysregulated, we can get them back into class.
And some of those teachers were classroom teachers before And if that money goes away, they have an opportunity to become a classroom teacher again.
Correct.
No, they should not, because they have moved from one district to the other. We went through that in Rockingham, and they do not have the right to come back and bump a teacher in the regular district if they went to ESSER. Unless they.
I mean, as far as ESSER teachers, no. So I apologize. So ESSER teachers, there's not a clause for the ESSER teachers. There's a clause for the consolidated federal grant or title teachers. So the ESSER teachers, those positions go away. If there's a position open in the district and they'd like to apply for it, they'd have that opportunity. Thank you for that clarification. Yeah, because ESSER didn't exist when we did the contract. So
I have a question.
I see others, just a minute. Junior next.
Okay, so shouldn't all special educators, teachers, and paras be on this list?
no, you only ratify special education teachers and or other certified folks like a speech language pathologist.
So where are they?
The paraprofessionals are as a school board, you do not, they're hired through the special ed director.
Okay, and is that the same way with the pre-K, the early ed teachers? There's only one early childhood educator here. The other three people that work in that are services, huh?
Paras, not certified.
One's an administrator and
One's
the others are paras.
Okay, okay. So that isn't on here either. Okay, all right.
Next,
Can I
Priscilla and
piggyback on
then
that?
Jason.
Because we have 3 early childhood special educators. What grade levels do those cover? Do those just cover the?
Pre-K.
We have 3 for pre-K?
Correct. That's actually down from 4.
Okay, so we have 1 at.
They're not assigned to a school. They float and they cover all our providers throughout our community providers. So they will go out to the different providers and provide services.
Okay, so we have 3 special ed, and like she said, we have 1 teacher, and then the administrator also teaches. So we have basically one teacher and 2 different areas assigned, Westminster and Central, where the pre-K is.
Along that same topic, can I just
Finish? We've got other people whose turn it is.
Is that right, Andy? Did I?
So we operate 2 sites.
Right.
And I mean, how Jennifer, who is the administrator for our pre-K program, how she chooses to assign her teachers. I mean, she might assign herself to Westminster. I mean, I don't know we haven't had that discussion for next year yet, so. Yeah,
but basically it's equivalent of having 2 teachers, 1 for each site, however they're broken up or however.
Yeah, yeah.
So the open position that we're hiring for early childhood special educator?
The special education position, not a preschool teacher.
Okay, because that other classroom is gonna be half.
That's not it.
That's not it.
That's not in there. We're not hiring another teacher for that extra.
Okay.
All right, let me go around the table. Jason's next.
Thank you, Cheryl. May I ask 3 questions?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
The folks that are ESSER, you said, could bump other.
No, I corrected Priscilla corrected that and I agreed with her. So they do not have the right to bump another teacher, but they would have a right to apply for an open position.
So do they know that potentially if funding is gone, then there might not be a job if they don't want?
Yes.
They do.
They should. I mean, we brought them on. That's what we informed them.
Do we have job descriptions for an interventionist somewhere in a policy book?
Not in a policy book, but we do have a job description that we can provide for you.
It's very similar to Title I.
Okay, thank you. And then is there like it just, to me, it looks like a lot of people. And I do realize it's a lot of districts or a lot of schools. So is there a formula to figure out like how many you actually need So maybe this is understaffed if the formula works out or whatever, but I'm concerned that seems like a lot of money.
Yeah,
So is there a formula?
So there is a formula. There's what's called targeted ranking within the grant management system. And so there's a formula you have to put in, and X number of title dollars must be spent at different schools based on that formula. And so we work with the different schools on how they're looking to use those funds. And you typically are using those funds with additional FTEs to provide that school-wide intervention that Mr. Kibbe was talking about.
And you feel comfortable with?
I feel we're understaffed to provide the services that our students need.
Thank you.
But we're,
With the open positions, we'd
these
still
are
be
special
under.
education positions. I'm talking about title positions. So with our title, we have a very high needs student population, a very, and as Teen pointed out, with Act 173 and looking at the changes in structure, you're trying to provide support and intervention to students prior to getting to special education. And as I said, we have a very high needs. You know, I think I've spoken about it as director, but I think I even spoke about it last year. Within our student population, almost 2/3 of our entire student population is on some type of support, academic support plan. Be that anywhere from, it could be a behavior plan or an EST all the way up to an IEP.
Jason has a follow-up and then it's Chris.
Thank you, Cheryl. Andy, I'm concerned about the high needs. What is the magic? What is the magic to fix that going forward so that children aren't high needs? Do they graduate from high needs to, how does that work? I'm just curious. I'm not asking a professional opinion.
I mean, if someone has got the magic, I would love to see it. I'll be honest with you, because a lot of it starts as students are, you know, coming into our institutions. I mean, they may come in behind already. That's why a heavy investment in early childhood intervention is really important, and being able to offer high quality pre-K programming so that students get the intervention really early. But as they come in, a lot of it is, we're seeing right now, many of our kindergartners are extremely behind. And then as they move up, and as you go through K through 2, you know, you're learning to read. And then in 3rd grade, it's you're reading to learn. So if you don't learn to read by 2nd grade, you're behind. And so it's building those interventions in place. And so we are this year really pivoting heavily away from Qantas and Pinnell, which is a reading program. We've been working, all of our title teachers this year have been working with the Stern Center on a program called Lead to Read, which is about the science of reading so that they become experts in how to understand how students learn to read. So then we can begin to put those interventions in place. And the same thing with mathematics. I know Teen is a guru in math, so I don't know if those same timelines start around 2nd and 3rd grade, but.
I mean, 3rd grade stuff really hits the fan in 3rd grade because you're solidifying, I mean, I won't go into my whole thing, but whole number reasoning. I mean, I think one of the issues too is that kids have always had you've always had a wide spread of kids understanding in your classroom, but the spread right now is so big. It is like if you were teaching in a school pre-pandemic to now, it is a vastly different ballgame than you've ever seen before. And I think kids just you could pick out, like, I know when kids come to me in this grade, there's going to be these struggles in these common areas, and I'm going to know how to touch those up and do some work with those, and we can intervene and we can do some stuff. But right now it's just everywhere. And it's like, you got a boat with 500 holes that you're trying to constantly patch. And it's doable, but you need more support from teachers who have more expertise in things. Like, I'm so happy the district is doing the science of reading. I think that's huge that teachers are being trained in that, because they have to know how brains actually learn to read.
Thank you, Jean.
If I could just real quick follow up also, like so where our focus is how do we give our classroom teachers, how do we fill their toolbox with the ability to adjust their instructional practices to meet the needs of students? And so just taking that science of reading piece, last year we began with our special educators, having them go through as a cohort with the Stern Center. This year we added, it's a 2-year program. So this year we added our interventionists. Next year we're looking to add in our kindergarten and first grade teachers. And so we're trying to build up folks' ability to fully understand. We're going to do the same, very similar with mathematics as we go through of how do we build those up so that teachers have the tools so that students can be successful. So.
Thank you.
Chris, did you have any comments there? No? Okay. Anyone?
Well,
Yes.
it's just, it seems to me that I like the old way better. Okay? And it sounded from what Andy said is because of wording they put into the contract, we have to do it this way. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying the law changed.
Oh, the law changed.
Our attorney told us we cannot, this is how we have to operate.
Even though the funding is not guaranteed. We're required to offer a contract when the funding for that position is not guaranteed. I don't buy that. Okay.
That's how your CBA is written. I mean,
Well, now you're talking about the contract. That's what
so it's your contract, but it's also the labor laws and the way the labor laws are written. So I mean, I don't, I mean, unless you want me to, do you want me to have Pietro come? And I mean,
no,
if you don't want to.
It just doesn't sound right, okay? It just doesn't sound right. And I think I would like Pietro to write a paragraph that says that.
Jigs, I don't understand your question. Will you clarify what you liked before that you don't like now?
The title teachers
Right.
were not approved because they received their contract in July when we have the funding.
Okay.
The assurance of the funding. Okay, so all of the positions that are not X'd out, okay, we've approved budgets for those people.
Right.
Okay, the pink ones, well, the yeser ones, I think is pretty well assured.
Yeah, I can only find one highlighter. Sorry.
But the title teachers are basically subject to receiving the funds from and Andy, you said you're pretty sure.
Well, we already got our preliminary numbers. We received those Friday or Monday from the AOE. This is how much money you will be getting for title funds.
Okay.
So we wouldn't, but I mean, but at the same time.
But I still don't understand how Pietro would say the
because,
law requires you.
Because these are teachers that you employed and they're guaranteed a job under your collective bargaining agreement. And so therefore.
So it is the contract.
But there's also labor laws that coincide with that. I can't quote you the labor law, I'm sorry, Jake. But the fact is that if you didn't have funding, if your funding for some reason fell out, then all these folks are still guaranteed a job in your SU.
That's not the way we used to. We had a contract. That's not the way we wrote the contract before.
But I'm telling you, there's a clause in your collective bargaining agreement that says that they have that right. And so do the special education teachers. So if you have a special education teacher who's paid under IDEA, which is another federal grant, if for some reason you didn't get that federal grant, that teacher who's got 15 years of service with you has a right to then bump another special education teacher.
I'm not talking about bumping. I'm not arguing about bumping. I'm arguing about the fact that we're offering a contract when we don't have the absolute assurance of the funds.
Regardless of the funds, is what I'm telling you, they have a right to a job. That's the difference.
We've got a number of hands up. Priscilla, you were next, then Molly, then June, and Chris.
I believe they have a right to a job unless they're RIFed. And the RIF has to be done by April 15th. So,
So we could RIF
So-
these people,
we could RIF
which we've
what
done in the
we
past.
could RIF what we do not feel we are guaranteed to have money for, but we will have definitely some title money. And I think, Andy, what you're telling us is that we are assured to have money to cover these title positions based on the preliminary, that you are not feeling that the preliminary money that you were notified of would not cover all of them. Because if the preliminary money did not cover all of them, then we need to identify the ones at the bottom that would be under that RIF status, give them a RIF status until we do have enough funding to be sure we're covering them. Is that a correct assessment?
That would be a correct assessment, and I have worked in,
That's the
districts,
policy.
and I've worked in districts where all the special education teachers and all the title teachers are RIFed every year.
That's what we did.
And that's what we used to do
Yeah.
here. And the association did not agree with that.
That's terrible.
Because we're getting.
I don't agree with it either. I want
That's-
to go on record as saying I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
But I've worked
I
in
mean, but if there's any question of not being able to fund all of them, then those should be identified so that we're not out there guaranteeing money that we know we don't have.
I mean, we can hardly hire enough people.
All right, let's go sequentially. Molly, you were next.
I'd like to move the question.
All right?
Mhm.
Unless there's someone, you have to vote on that,
We
unless
have to
there's
vote on
someone
Yeah,
that
we have
wants
to
to.
Yeah,
Because
That's a non-debatable
as small board rules, we usually don't allow for moving it because in case someone else wants to speak.
You
because
have done
cuts
that
them
to
off.
me already, so don't tell me that.
Well, that's what Robert's
So-
rules
Rules
say.
are always different.
So at this point with Molly moving the question, if they can vote on that.
All right. So let me poll everybody in terms of whether you agree to calling the question. Lynn? That's a yes. Molly?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that means then that we vote on the motion to approve this roster.
Correct.
Am I correct? Okay, so I'll start yet again with you, Lynn. The motion is to approve the roster as presented.
Yes.
Thank you, Molly.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to abstain.
Okay,
I also will abstain.
okay. That's 3 abstentions. Jim?
Well, it's pretty fashionable. I'm gonna vote no.
All right.
I'm gonna vote yes.
Okay. Team? Yes. Okay. And I vote yes as well with 3 abstentions. Oh, sorry, no. Just touch it.
Thank you.
All right, so the roster, the motion to approve the roster carries, and that is done. Thank you, everybody, for
Can I
a
do
thoughtful
quick-
discussion. Yes.
If the abstentions and the nays, won, don't we still have to legally offer them a contract by April 15th?
Well, under your CBA, you have to, yes, so then we would have to have a special meeting to still get it approved. Yes.
Okay.
It was just approved.
She just was.
No, I
Exactly.
said if it
Clarification.
hadn't.
If it had been voted down, let's say.
If it is
Okay, that's
not,
extended.
and you
It's
don't
good.
RIF, then they get a contract anyway, even if you haven't handed them one by April 15th. because you have to have made a
What's next,
decision on
Cheryl?
April 15th.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
it, yeah.
Next item on the agenda, thank you very much, is the idea about the bid construction management process.
So we just want to make you aware as a board that we are going to be going out to bid on behalf of the WNESU board for construction management. This was at the strong advice of Steve Horton, who's our project manager, but also the AOE thought it was a good route to go to move projects along and to get them done. So we are going to be going out to bid, and the bids just say on behalf of WNESU, we're soliciting bids for construction management. Construction management, Molly, I'm going to get it wrong, so jump in here, but I'll say it in the way I understand it. It's kind of like a general contractor on steroids, in the sense that they would come in, they handle hiring all the subcontractors and getting the contracts done for the different projects, having a foreman on site overseeing the project. Steve comes in, meets with them and building administration, keeps the project kind of going. Steve's the one who's kind of got the fire lit to keep them going. But the construction management can bid on the whole, all of our projects bundled together, not to exceed a certain amount type of thing. So is that?
Yes, and they would normally stick a trailer, maybe 2 or 3 trailers in different spots. And maybe working at 3 schools at once, may focus on one thing and then move everybody. But one person would be, it cuts out a lot of middlemen, tries to help keep that system flowing.
Right, and then your roofer that you have for the middle school and here and become the same roofing company. You're getting the same product, same people doing the job. So you're not got like 3 different companies you're working with. So.
You did good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did good too.
Well, I'll give it to Steve because he briefed me on it. So drilled it into my head.
Chris has a comment.
So this question and a couple. So the construction management company then becomes responsible for fulfilling the bid requirements that we have to.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And could you just give some examples of companies that are construction management, like Macmillan or Crumble Nelson, or those?
You're naming them.
Yeah, those would be the.
Yep. Those are the kind of companies that have.
Yeah, I do apologize. That's you're going beyond my wheelhouse of being able to name.
Is okay, can I speak?
I mean,
By doing it this way, it's gonna start getting things flowing, but it's also gonna take a lot of that weight off our superintendent, who is trying to figure out how to, how many conversations we had at the high school about, if we're making out the paperwork right to get the HVAC done, we still don't have it done because we just haven't got that right person yet. And by getting Steve and then him getting that construction management guy in here, he's gonna have all those contacts and they're gonna fill that paperwork out. We're not gonna.
Other question. So the funding for this will be the ESSER grant or
Correct.
from local?
No, it's all lesser grants.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some of it, like for the high school, would be maybe into the bonds, but that's all been approved.
And then there might be, so I'm sorry, just like at Rockingham, we talked about like a project that we might pull some local funds and stuff like that from. So, but the majority is ESSER.
This was informational. You don't need any action on this tonight.
No, just need to notify you. So if someone read the paper, like, why are you doing this on our behalf? So we wanted you to be aware.
Right, everybody ready for?
I have one question. The construction management person, that is under ESSER though. It's just the bids that might
The
be.
different project may be funded differently, but construction management is all under ESSER. Yeah.
This owner's representative role is under ESSER.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Okay. So I think we're ready for director's comments upon there, and then we'll go to the next meeting date. Lynn, any comments from you tonight?
None, thank you.
All right. And David, not a voting member, but a guest and a board member, we're happy to have you make any comments if you choose to.
Another scintillating meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, as always. Absolutely. Molly?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Jim?
I'm all set, thank you.
Jason?
Thank you, Cheryl. When I was listening to Andy, I have a real concern about my children's children growing up in this world.
Mhm.
And I really think, and I believe it, and I think it's true, that we have done a lot of damage to our world's best natural resource, which is our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Chris?
I'm all set.
All right. Let me go around this end. Team? All set. Thank you. Kristen?
I think the best way to build for our children and our children's children and thinking about it is to build those relationships and build on that consideration and getting people to really work on the empathy and the caring for their neighbors, and so that we can all be looking out for each other and helping each other. So that's the basis for everything that we teach in any kind of school.
Jim?
Jim Vazina has been sitting through this, and I didn't want to go without, he did send out a financial report on the current year's budget. I think the budget is, it shows an overage of 300 and something thousand. Fortunately though, I say fortunately, but I want Jim to verify fortunately, the food budget is 600 and something thousand over budget. And as I had said before, that's the one number I believe the food number will come in on the budget for 2023. And I just wanted you to comment on that, Jim.
Jim, I think we're going to be fine on food service. I will say this, the one area that concerns me is indirect costs. And we had budgeted, I'm just using a round number, I think 400,000 to balance out the whole budget. Right now, we had a discussion with the Agency of Education. We had booked about 120,000 to date. And in talking with Bob Kothrop, he indicated that we can't get indirect on projects and can't get it on equipment. So he said, you're going to have to back that out and redo it. So I just have a concern as to how much of that we're going to be able to collect.
So that's not the food budget though.
No, the food budget, I think you're going to be fine on, and I think you're going to balance out all right with the summer programming overage and what we're bringing in for revenues to balance out.
Okay. So the indirect cost deals with what part of the budget?
The indirect cost is the revenue piece that we expected to balance out against our expenses. So it's just a piece of revenues that we projected way back when you did your budgets last year.
All right, let me interject at this point. This is a proper question, but not in director's comments. And I think it's very important that for our next board meeting, which is the regularly scheduled board meeting, Jim, that you would bring this forward. I know we'll have a fulsome discussion of the budget, including everything you've just raised.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Then my director's comment is, I'm still waiting for the audit of the WNESU. And would like very much to receive that because we need to deal with the surplus.
You bet. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Kathy, any comments from me?
Just to comment on what Priscilla said and you. I think as parents, they have to really show their kids respect, or what respect is in those values, family values, and the love that these kids need. Our kids, our grandkids, and to move forward. Without that, these kids are gonna really struggle, and not be successful without it.
Thank you. Mike, did you want to make any comments on this? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll close with a comment. I think that this is an emotional time for a lot of people. We've had a lot of people with losses, personal losses in the community. Some community losses that I think are touching everybody in some deep ways. And so with that, I want to respect the fact that there's pain around us in the community, and that there really are serious issues that many families and other community members are facing. So with that, I just want to again thank each of you for being willing to be elected, to serve in this role. And I know that every one of us takes it seriously, and that we're going to keep doing the best that we can. So I thank you. And our next meeting is, and it's a regularly scheduled meeting, and the audit and the potential deficit, which we don't think will be there, but all of that we need to discuss in great detail at the next meeting, Jim. Next meeting is April 19th at 6 o'clock here. So with that, I think I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
This meeting was recorded by Falls Area Community Television, located at 1 Hospital Court, Bellows Falls, Vermont. If you would like a copy of the meeting, our phone number is 802-463-1613, or email us at fact810@gmail.com. Falls Area Community TV, keeping government honest.